Welcome back to Real Florida Magazine.
Welcome back here today on the beautiful campus of Florida Panhandle Technical College. Another in our series of community events. Here right now with Sunshine Spears with Emerald Coast Hospice. Emerald Coast Hospice, a very large part of our community, certainly engaged in everything that goes on. They've got a special event in honor of Veterans Day coming up. When we come back, we're going to talk to Sunshine about Emerald Coast Hospice in general, certainly, but specifically about this Veterans Day event. You know, people get Memorial Day and Veterans Day mixed up. We'll talk a little bit about the difference in the two. But it's very important that we do take that opportunity to honor our veterans. In this case, on November 11th is officially the date. Their event on the 4th, 1 week prior. But when we come back, we're going to let Sunshine tell you about all of this and more, and we will be right back. Welcome back. As mentioned, our guest is Sunshine Spears from Emerald Coast Hospice.
Hi.
You're an old pro for the show. You've been here before.
Yes. Thank you for having me back.
Yeah, and thanks for, it's an early part of the morning, and I appreciate you taking that time. So many people prefer to come after lunch, but you know, after lunch, we're kind of sluggish, and you're kind of digesting your food, and you're kind of sleepy, and you get, but for me, first thing in the morning is always best. Emerald Coast Hospice. Interestingly, the last time you were on the show, you had just started working for Emerald Coast.
Yes.
You showed up with some of the Margot Lamb and some of the other members of Emerald Coast, and they said, guess what, Sunshine, you're going to be on TV today. So again, you knew what to expect coming in. We're talking about Veterans Day. You guys have an event on November 4th, which is the Friday prior to the actual Veterans Day, because you've got another event in Marietta, and we can talk about that as well. But for the Chipley event on November 4th, tell us a little bit about what you guys are doing to honor our veterans.
Okay, well, we're planning a cookout. It's going to be held at the Washington County Council on Aging. It's sponsored by Emerald Coast Hospice and our Chipley office, which is right next door to Council on Aging. It's going to be lunch from 11:30 to 12:30. We're going to be serving hamburgers and chips and drinks. We're doing special recognition for our veterans and also for our employees who are veterans.
I like the last part particularly. So often we will honor a group of people and we forget those that work within our own organization. We have a lot of veterans in this area. We have a lot of retirement age people in this area, many of whom are those veterans. Let's back up a little bit. Council on Aging and Emerald Coast Hospice. Emerald Coast Hospice is actually in the building that used to be the old City Drug Building, right out there on the corner. What's that side street?
I'm not certain the name of the side street.
Is that a number street? Is that like a third street or something like that?
I'm not sure.
It's right across from the tag office.
It is. It's right across from the government offices on
the
South
Washington
Street.
County Annex. Everybody calls it the tag office, but there's so much more there. You guys have been in that building now, what, 2 or 3 years?
A few years, yes.
Yeah,
yes.
That's a big, old, very historic building. I've been in there. We've shot photos and done some video with you guys. That's you've got it all divided up into offices. You've got a bunch of people working out of that office.
We do. We're very fortunate. We have a great staff.
Yeah, and many volunteers.
Absolutely, yes.
Now, I think the volunteers, and obviously as we've discussed, play a huge part in your overall services as hospice. In the case of the Veterans Day celebration, will you have some of those volunteers coming to help with that?
We actually do. We have a great group of volunteers that have decided to come over and help us out with the cookout, and we also have some community volunteers. Trey Hawkins is going to be providing some chips and things for us during this event as a community representative.
Wow, and I'm glad that you said that. Trey, obviously one of the candidates right now for Washington County District 3 County Commission. Again, one of those guys, whether he's running for office or not, is always out there giving something. Interesting story, they had a boil water notice in Vernon, and he was in Chipley at the time. He went to the Walmart, filled up the back of his pickup truck with bottled water, took it down there. He just happened to be seen by a member of the press, and that story got told, but I mean, he wasn't looking for recognition. So I know that he's related somehow to Julie Pettis, who is the director of Emerald Coast Hospice in Chipley, right?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah, and so that's a good marriage, and certainly he brings to the table the ability to donate and sponsor, so that's another benefit of that community partnership.
Absolutely.
You guys do a lot in the community. You definitely participate in, I saw you at Trunk or Treat. I saw you, actually I saw some of your other people at Trunk or Treat. I saw you at Sunland for their fall festival just this last weekend.
Yes.
You don't miss an opportunity to get out there, and shame on you if you don't tell people about what you do. What is it that you actually do for the organization professionally?
Well, I'm the Hospice Admissions Education Specialist is my official title. I have the benefit of being able to provide education to the community, to different facilities, nursing homes, hospitals, senior groups, things of that nature. I also have the ability to provide community support. So we did, the food drive that we do every year in August. I was able to head that up and be able to participate in that, and also, do things like this, like the Veterans Cookout, and make sure that we get the word out, and then we support our community.
How was that food drive overall? Was it successful?
We did fantastic. We had we had a donation center in Chipley and one in Mariana, and so both offices participate. We had a little friendly competition between the offices, but we donated, and we had a great turnout for that. Absolutely.
As I started to say in the intro to the show, many people confuse Memorial Day and Veterans Day. Both of them opportunities to thank our veterans. But and one of the reasons I was glad that you guys called and said, we're doing this thing, can you help us to promote it, is that Veterans Day seems to take a back seat to many of our other commemorative holidays when we're talking about veterans. Veterans Day, every city hall's got a guy with a bugle and they raise a flag, but it's really not a lot of emphasis put on that. The interesting thing, Veterans Day was originally called Armistice Day. It was started in 1919, and Memorial Day was started in 1968, so it's relatively new, and yet for some reason Veterans Day has taken that back seat. I'm a member of the Chipley Kiwanis Club, and we have what we call Spiritual Aims program. So a half dozen times during the year, we commemorate Christmas and 4th of July and so forth. And since I've been the program director, I've decided that we would do one for Veterans Day. At some point, I'd love to have you guys have been our program in the past. Love to have you guys come on sometime and to our club and talk about that veterans effort. I think that some insight into those who you serve from the hospice, and many of those obviously being veterans.
Yes.
So you have a fine eye on that segment of society. Love to have you come on sometime so we can talk about that maybe.
Absolutely.
At some other time.
And that is one of the questions and the key information we receive from our patients when we do an admission is we ask, are they a veteran? Because we want to make sure that we're recognizing those people who have served. And it's really near and dear to our hearts as a company and as a facility. So. Hospice,
for so long, Sunshine, it had that real dark connotation to it.
Stigma.
Yeah. What I've learned, and through you guys, is that many times people are discharged from hospice and actually continue to enjoy those days, and because of the quality of life that you allow them to enjoy, sometimes get their medication regulated, their regular visits to doctors, and sometimes actually are able to avoid that prognosis that they originally were looking at. Talk a little bit about how that hospice works.
Well, when a patient is admitted under hospice, a lot of times a physician has told them, that there's not a lot else they can do for them. They have a diagnosis that's typically degenerative or something that's progressive, like a COPD or a congestive heart failure diagnosis. And they have been in the hospital in and out, in and out, in and out. They have a 2 a.m. episode where they can't breathe and they panic and they don't know what to do. And that fear drives them to go to the emergency room. So physicians will a lot of times go, let's see if we can get some additional support in. Get those symptoms managed. And when it comes to quality of life, you want to make sure that your symptoms, whatever they are managed, whether it be pain or nausea or shortness of breath. And so you're right, a lot of times whenever our nurses go in and they start teaching these patients and their families what medications can help these symptoms, or non-pharmacological interventions when it comes to pain management or anxiety and things of that nature, our nurses are really, really great at helping patients and families understand that. And so that fear is reduced, and then those hospitalizations are reduced, and they do begin to live a higher quality of life. Absolutely.
By the time that person who is the diagnosed person reaches the stage where they would typically need or want hospice services, their caregivers are about to give out. They are to the point where they're frazzled. They're certainly not being very effective. So at that time, hospice can give relief to the patient, but also, very importantly, to that caregiver. Talk about how that caregiver service works into your overall plan.
We kind of view our care as holistic, meaning we look at the big picture. We look at the patient, we look at the family, we look at every entity of, what's going on with them. We have social workers, we have chaplains, we have volunteers. Many of our volunteers are people who have had experience with hospice, have lost a loved one who were on hospice services before. We have skilled nurses and we have health aides. A lot of times the families are overwhelmed because they're having to do the bathing and the dressing and all the things that our health aides can help with. So we just want to make sure that we're addressing the needs of both the patient and the family and any caregiver that might be involved in the situation.
Maybe it's me, maybe it's just that I'm looking more because I'm getting older myself, but do we have more instances of those cancer diagnoses lately or within the last 10, 15, 20 years? Or is it just that we have more awareness of what's going on around us? Or is it just that there's more people?
I think people are living longer. Their medications and things have advanced and physicians are more aware of symptoms early, and they're treating things earlier, and they're finding things earlier, which is fantastic. But people are living a lot longer than we used to. So yeah, I think the prevalence of cancer diagnosis is, in my opinion, higher. But again, I have to wonder, is that because I'm getting older myself, or because I work for hospice and I do see that more often? But I do believe it's primarily because we're living longer as individuals.
I think we made this suggestion the last time that you guys came on, but what I'd really like for you to consider is to come on monthly or at least quarterly. Let's talk more about this. I think it's really important that people realize that there is help out there, that it is covered by insurance, and that's a discussion for another show, because we could go into depth in that. Many people not availing themselves of services that are there that they qualify for at no cost to them because of insurance. Would you consider doing that over time?
Absolutely. And it is, ultimately my goal in the position that I'm in is to educate and to help people understand that, coming on board with hospice, as you said, does not necessarily mean that, you're going to be passing within, so many weeks, months, days. And it is a service that people don't often accept easily because of the fear and the unknown. So any opportunity we can have to educate people and to alleviate that stigma that's associated with hospice, I'll certainly take that opportunity.
Not politically correct, but at one time, hospice almost was a death sentence. You almost felt that was the end of the road. Amazing to me and very heartening. And it's such a wonderful story, and I've heard you guys tell it before, and I want you to come back again and be able to tell our viewers, is that hospice many times allows that, number one, quality of life for the remaining days, but sometimes, in many cases, extends those days to the point sometimes where people are even discharged from hospice. What better thing to happen?
I know. I've had a couple of patients as a case manager where we were able to discharge those patients because they understood now, okay, when I'm having these symptoms, and they became more chronically ill versus terminally ill. And so, of course, we have guidelines and things that we have to follow and things we have to look at. But it is quite heartwarming to know that we have the ability to do that as well.
Well, unfortunately, healthcare in general, and certainly hospice and all of the other associated services, a growth industry right now, because all of the baby boomers are getting toward retirement age. The interesting thing is that they can choose their health care provider, they can choose their extended assisted nursing facilities, and we're all getting closer to that age. Thanks for being here today. Before you leave, let's talk one more time about your upcoming November 4th Veterans Luncheon. It's behind the Council on Aging, and we don't have the address, but if we gave you the address, it would just be confusing. It's across from the Government Annex, or Washington County Annex, right there on South Boulevard, just a couple of blocks from downtown Chipley. What time is it on Friday, November 4th? November
4th, we'll be serving lunch from 11:30 to 12:30, and we'll have a special recognition for our employees as well who are veterans that day. So we'd love to have everybody join us.
Yeah, and I know, as in everything else, people show up a little bit early, but there's a nice pavilion there, picnic tables, it's shaded, it's actually a beautiful spot, trees. What I really like about the fact when you got any of you associated agencies that are in that block of buildings, you got the health department, you got Anchorage Children's Home, whenever anything happens, I guess you guys have like a little pipeline and everybody knows and everybody comes out to have lunch. That is such a great thing. The added value there, and I don't know that anybody's ever really acknowledged this, but the older folks who avail themselves of those services, including the Council on Aging and Hospice, they get a chance to actually talk to representatives from all those other services.
Yes.
That is really neat. You mentioned Trey Hawkins. Just last week, he did a chili luncheon for the seniors there.
Yes.
And many of those agency people were there, and I saw some of these older folks being able to talk to people about the services. It's almost a clearinghouse, an opportunity in a non-invasive, low-key, comfortable environment. And I would imagine that over time, if I were any of your agencies, and especially yours, make sure that you have maybe a little collateral that you can hand a card or a piece of, a brochure or something. might be an opportunity to reach some of those people ordinarily that would not be able to. On the November 4th luncheon, is it open to the public?
It is, yes. Yes, we invite anyone to come out and join us and help support our veterans, and especially any veterans who are available to come out and have lunch with us. We will be out there, obviously starting around 11 a.m. And we're welcome. People are welcome to stay, beyond the 12:30, but we'll be actually serving food from 11:30 to 12:30.
Many times we think, okay, it's Council on Aging, it's hospice, maybe, but this is literally open to the public. And if you want to honor our veterans, hopefully we're going to have a lot of, hopefully too many to attend Veterans Day celebrations.
Yes.
Did you have the opportunity last year to go behind Capital City Bank when Gulf Power and West Florida Electric extended that big 50-foot flag and had that up there in that parking lot?
I did not.
You saw pictures from it?
Yes, I was primarily in the Marietta area last year this time. So.
Okay. That was just really emotional, and all the veterans had a chance to talk. I'm glad that you did this. I think that we can help you to pump up the awareness for this event. We let Scott Elder and his wife know. Scott is a character locally. He's a retired veteran. He's at everything. He's actually a volunteer along with his wife at Council on Aging. We let him know about it. He said, "Don't worry, Paul, I'll get the word out." So if for future reference, if you ever need a clearinghouse for information with the veteran population, he's probably the guy to go to. Thanks for taking the time this morning. I know it's early, but this is worth talking about. And say hello to Julie and Margot and everybody else.
And I'd also like to add, this is free. So I don't know if we mentioned that, but it is free. So.
Yeah, well, that's 4 good reasons to go. FRENE. It's lunch. I'll be there certainly. Well, I'll tell you what. If you're amenable to it, we'll come and take some photos and then let people know on Facebook and the website and all that stuff. November 4th, behind the Council on Aging on South Boulevard, right across from the Washington County Annex. It's Emerald Coast Hospice presenting a Veterans Day luncheon. Lunch served from 11:30 to 12:30. You can come a little bit early, certainly stay a little bit late. Trey Hawkins, candidate for Washington County Commissioner District 3, helping in some fashion, donating some of the foodstuffs for that. Don't miss the opportunity to say thanks to our men and women in uniform. And we say that, and many times we neglect those veterans. They don't all wear a hat with scrambled eggs on it and proclaiming the fact that they were a World War II veteran or a Vietnam veteran. So if you get the opportunity to find out somebody is that veteran, take a few extra moments. That's a population, unfortunately, that we're losing very quickly. So this is just another great opportunity to say thanks to our veterans, and thanks to Emerald Coast Hospice.
Thank you.
Our guest today has been Sunshine Spears from Emerald Coast Hospice, talking about the November 4th Veterans Day luncheon. We'll be right back.